Hey guys, my name is Amanda Rosenbaum, and I am the owner and chief clinical officer at Anchor ABA. And today I was going to do a little chat on the functions of behavior, which I know is something that a lot of parents who are receiving ABA for their children hear a lot, is the function of the behavior that we're looking for. Really, it's talking about the why behind the action or behind the behavior that you're seeing. So I wanted to explain some of the different functions, just really brief, in this free parent coaching session. So hopefully it helps. Okay, so what is the function? We hear that a lot as parents. I know that I say it a lot. I know that other BCBAs and RBTs probably say that to you a lot. And what does that really mean? What are we looking for? The function of the behavior is the why. It's the reason, the motivation leading to the observable behavior. So we want to know why a child would do something silly, like the child in this photo, or potentially having a tantrum or self-injurious, or aggression, something a little bit more scary. We want to know why. What's leading them to do that action, to have that behavior? And that's a big part of applied behavioral analysis. That's a big part of us being able to help those behaviors either increase or decrease depending on the behavior in question, is knowing why it's happening. So we have four main functions that I'm going to talk about today pretty briefly. A good way to remember them is the acronym SEAT. So we have sensory, automatic. We have escape for E, which is like avoidance also. A for attention, and T for tangible. So we're going to go into all of those in a little bit more detail. But if you ever get to a loss, just think SEAT. You've got your sensory, your escape, your attention, and your tangible. So with our S, our sensory, that's something automatic. So that's any sort of behavior that's going to give you a rewarding sensation for yourself. It looks good, it feels good, it smells good, it sounds good. Anything that's giving you that automatic reinforcement, that's going to go under sensory. So, for instance, I was raised in the ocean state, so I absolutely love the smell of the ocean. I love the feel of sand in my toes. I like feeling like salty after you get out of the ocean. All of those would be a sensory experience, leading my behavior to increase to go to the beach more frequently, because those are automatically reinforcing to me. They automatically make me feel good. So let's get some real world examples of sensory. So real world example, oops, I'm gonna move my image real quick to get that out of the way. I made these up, so as you see these coming along, I just kind of made these up. Mandy is a kindergarten student who has been diagnosed with low functioning autism. When she's outside playing, she closes her eyes, she rocks back and forth for about 3 to 5 seconds at a time. Then she continues playing. So some parents may see this behavior and not really know what it is. You may be looking to see, why is this happening? You can quantify it or think about it in the sense of an emotion. She's happy playing, so she's doing something that's expressing that happy. Sure. But the idea of rocking with her eyes closed and she's in her own little world, that's automatically reinforcing to her. So yes, there may be other reasons why that's happening when you think about it in the internal thoughts sort of way. She's happy, she's excited, she's in a good mood, she's having fun, sure. But the function, going back to that sensory, her rocking back and forth probably feels good to her. And that is what's reinforcing in and of itself. That sensory experience is reinforcing. So the function of that behavior, that rocking behavior, which is a pretty typical behavior we see in autism, that's automatically reinforcing. So that would be sensory. Next, we have escape, but that's also known as avoidance. Let me move my picture to get out of the way again. So that is getting away or getting out of a certain situation. You're just trying to get away from something. Honestly, your motivation is to leave. It's to leave a person, a place, a stimuli or a stimulus, or demands. And remember, when we say demands, a lot of times that's a really harsh word I think we use in the field, where people hear demand and you're like, you're asking a lot of me. No, a demand could simply be like, hey buddy, get off the counter, you're not supposed to be standing on the counter. That's a direct action. I'm asking you to do something. We coin that as a demand. I could say sit down for circle time. That's technically a demand. put your shoes on before you leave the house. So something small is also, also means demand. But any one of those things could be something that a child or a person is trying to get away from, trying to get out of. So their motivation, their function of their behavior would be to escape, to get away from these things. So here's our example. And again, my pesky image is in the way. Every day during story time, Mike starts to hit his fellow students and use curse words. During every other session, he has perfect behavior. When Mike does this, the teachers regularly remove him from the classroom. So Mike knows when I act like this, you're going to take me out of this situation and you're going to put me in the hallway. I don't like story time. That doesn't matter. I know if I hit people during story time, I'm going to be taken out of the classroom. I'm going to get to escape what I don't like. Therefore, I'm going to continue hitting kids at circle time. So he's engaging in the act of hitting his friends and cursing so he can get out of there. He can get out of Dodge and not be a part of story time. Whereas other people may come into this situation and think, oh, he's hitting his friends because he's more aggressive, or he's angry, or he's tired, or he's frustrated, or he's not understanding the material. And I'm not saying any of those in this hypothetical situation couldn't also be true. But what we are looking at, what the main reason we're looking at is he's hitting his friends to get out of story time. For him, he is escaping the demand of story time for whatever reason. And that's really like the underlying function, even to those other situations I gave. So attention, that's going to be gaining that attention, just like it says, from a peer, a person, an adult, and it can be good or bad. I'm going to call that positive or potentially negative attention. Positive and negative mean some different things in the world of ABA. We can go into that into a different video. But for this purpose, let's say good and bad attention. When you give your child good attention, you're like, hey, you're doing so great, buddy. Way to go. I'm so proud of you. Love everything you're doing. Yay. That's good attention, right? We think that will increase behavior. But also, if the child's function of their behavior is they just want attention and they're not getting that, hey, way to go, bud, they're going to then start to go to, don't do that, no thank you, please stop, hands to yourself, quiet mouth, whatever negative or bad attention you can then give for quote unquote undesirable or bad behavior. So attention can come in either form. So that's another tricky one. Attention is attention is attention. If you are speaking, looking, directing your physical body presence and stimuli to another person, you are giving that person or entity attention. So that's a big one that we see with a lot of younger kids, is just that drive for attention, which is natural in development, but it can get tricky when we're trying to not reinforce or not give attention to junk behavior. And again, we can talk about that in a different video, but attention's a big one. I don't know if, because I'm in this presentation, presenting it live, if this is going to work, and it doesn't look like it will. Oh, it may. I think it's going to take us to the video. Oh, great. And we're going to watch a little intermission. There we go. All right. So we're going to watch this kiddo, and he is the perfect example of an attention-seeking behavior. So any parents out there who have little ones or who have gone through the little one phase, you know this scenario very, very well. He is very upset when all eyes are on him. He very much has something to communicate clearly through his tantrum. He's distraught. He needs help. But yet when everyone moves out of the room and attention's gone, notice how quiet it gets, because he needs to find where everybody is and show them just how upset he is to get that attention. So that is a good example of attention-seeking behavior, where he is going through it for whatever reason. But magically, when the eyes aren't on him, he's no longer going through it. He needs to find the audience to get the attention. So it's not saying that he doesn't have something to communicate. It's not saying he doesn't have wants or needs. It's just saying that right now, this exact behavior where he was, kind of really going through the thick of it, that behavior is caused from attention. Him engaging in the tantrum is that attention. If you want to YouTube that on your own and you can't click on the link, just search boy seeking attention through tantrum. All right, next we have tangible. Tangible is access to an item or an activity. It can be an edible item, it can be an individual, it can be a thing out in public. It's just access to stuff. Tangible is stuff that you can put your hands on or do in your environment. And that's another big function of behavior, because kids like stuff. Everybody kind of likes stuff. I like stuff. So our real world example here is Michelle sees that mom has packed her mac and cheese for lunch, and she absolutely hates mac and cheese. I love mac and cheese, so I don't know what's going on with Michelle. Mom also packed her some Oreo cookies. Michelle's teacher told her that she cannot have the Oreos until she eats her mac and cheese, so Michelle eats her mac and cheese. Teachers out there may be very familiar with this scenario. Parents are probably very familiar with this scenario. Daycare providers are familiar with this scenario. Basically here, she wants those Oreos. Those Oreos are her tangible. That's very motivating for her. So because we rearranged where the motivation was here, it rearranged how her behavior went. So she ate the mac and cheese. She engaged in that behavior in order to gain access to that tangible item. What's driving her behavior of eating the macaroni and cheese? It's wanting those Oreos. It's wanting that item in her life. It's wanting that stuff. So that can be seen with kids with iPads. That can be seen with TV time. Those are two big ones that we see tangible, access to tangible as being a bigger behavior function. So let's talk about one more. This is not in our SEATS acronym because clearly we just did SEAT, our sensory, our escape, our attention, and our tangible. Our last one that's not on there that I like to pay a lot of attention to, I know some other providers out there pay extra attention to this one too. It is the unspoken M, which I rechanged my acronym to MEETS, to get what I need to get. But it's medical. It's the idea that a medical situation can also be a function of behavior. So we have our M for medical, or at least my M for medical. Medical concerns can absolutely lead to behavioral changes. 100%. They are real. It happens to me. I know it happens to you out there. So it can absolutely happen to our children. Of course, those with autism as well. Those with limited or low verbal communication, this is a big one to pay attention to because they need extra attention because they can't tell you when they're in pain, or they may not be able to communicate that accurately or functionally. They may not know what their feeling is. They might not know that has a name or a word or a label. So there's a lot mixed up in there that's, needs a lot of extra special attention. It can be easy to miss, and medical concerns can absolutely go undiagnosed because of those scary situations where a child may not be able to communicate. So here's a real world example. This is something that I've been through. The name has been changed, but it is a past client of mine. Again, the name has been changed. But Michael, he's a non-vocal verbal 4-year-old who has started to use the hard part of his wrist to press into the side of his temple. So that would be right about here. He does this so hard and so often, it's now leaving bruises and swellings in his temple. Since Michael also engages in other forms of self-injurious behavior, his parents and teachers don't think much of this new behavior. In reality, Michael was suffering from headaches due to an oncoming sinus infection that no one was aware that he was coming onto. We were missing the behavioral cues because he had behavioral symptoms as a part of autism that were very similar to what he was engaging in. But that's why any novel behavior, any new outlier that you see, maybe when your team is not present, you should bring up to your team. If your child does engage in some head hitting, but you notice it's ramped up one week, tell your provider, tell your speech pathologist, tell your OT, tell your doctor, tell your ABA team, tell your BCBA, tell somebody, because maybe they're having headaches. Maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe there was a big change in, and I don't mean nothing lightly. I mean, maybe there was a change in your routine or a change in something going on with your day that is truly relating to that head hitting, but maybe it's also headache related or medical related. And we never want these to go undiagnosed just because they can't be communicated. So making sure that things are being covered medically is very important, and staying really in close relationship with your medical team and medical providers is very important especially with those who are low to limited with vocal ability. So I put some resources here. These are different links to different article resources that I thought would be helpful. The first one talks about children with ASD are actually more likely to have stomach issues and to have GI tract disorders. But the question is now in the medical field, are some of those going undiagnosed? Are we saying, yes, because we know GI issues are related to autism, are bigger, more concerning GI issues going undiagnosed because we're kind of just saying, oh, well, that's a product of autism. Yeah, they're having these stomach issues because it's a product of autism. So kind of keeping that in mind. And as a parent, as a provider, as a teacher, as a loved one, kind of knowing, maybe when to push the issue with the doctor, or, when you are satisfied that, yes, this is, this is something they've gone through a lot and they have symptoms of, or no, you know what, this is different. Something different's going on and I need a little bit more medical attention for my child. So that's a good article to check out there, to kind of know when to push, when not to push, and realizing that medical concerns, of course, are going to still interact with our children who have autism. Just because they have autism doesn't mean they're not going to have another diagnosis. But we want to make sure our medical professionals and our teams are staying locked into that and are ensuring that we're remembering that our children are still children and they're going to get sick and stuff's going to happen. The second one is talking about how adults with autism are actually, a new study came out to say that they are at higher risk of being diagnosed with comorbidities, whether it's psychological or physical, because as children, they were going undiagnosed for such a long period of time because they had autism. And autism is a big umbrella term of a diagnosis. So these other smaller symptoms are getting coined in with autism when really they are probably their own individual comorbidity. And having autism does lead to a risk of having other higher rates of comorbidities. So keeping those two in mind and kind of watching out for that. The third is looking at how our comorbidities are more likely in those with ASD and ADHD. Just like I said before, this study kind of goes through and it really looks at different children who have these two diagnoses and looking at the comorbidities that they have. That's important to know. That's important research to come out, because that is saying, yes, we're validated that these kids are at a higher likelihood and a higher risk of having more than one diagnosis, meaning more than one treatment is needed, more than one professional is going to be needed on their team, maybe more than one medication or some medication type is needed. So that's very important for parents and caregivers alike to key into. And the last one, is a little different, but not quite. It's looking at that a fourth of children from communities of color are actually going undiagnosed in autism as well as other diagnoses. So that's looking at just even the overarch, we're talking about kids with autism, and I'm sitting here kind of talking to the parents who I'm assuming have the diagnosis already that their child has autism, but we're also missing a huge part of our population who is not getting diagnosed, who needs a diagnosis. So again, it's talking about bringing in that medical conversation of there are those in our community who are getting undiagnosed or underdiagnosed, where their behavioral behaviors have functions, and their functions may be one of the 5 things we just talked about today: medical, escape, access, attention, tangible, all of those big triggers that we were just talking about. Hopefully, if you guys have any further questions on this or want me to go into more detail, I'd be happy to. We're going to have a longer presentation on this in our paid subscription for parent trainings, where we really go through a lot of scenarios, a lot of tells for which behavior. We're going to talk about how we as BCBAs and RBTs can look for specific functions to specific behaviors, and how we can really dig into those, and then what we do on the back end once we know what the function is. How do we help it, how do we help it either increase or decrease. So if you have questions, please ask. You can send us an email. I'd be happy to answer and to get back to you, or you can look out for our parent subscription to our parent coaching, and have longer trainings and more in-depth trainings on these topics. You can visit us at our website at www.anchoraba.live for more information, or you can contact me at the email below, and I'd be happy to chat with you. Hopefully this was helpful, and I will talk to everybody soon. Have a good day.